chocolate. In the cafeteria of our company, there is a bowl of delicious sweets standing on the table. Every day during lunch break, when I finish my meal and chat a little with my colleagues, I briefly think, but I can't resist. Our boss decides to promote the health of his employees, so he instructs freshly cut seasonal fruits to be placed on the table instead of the sweets. Of course, I nibble today, even with a quiet conscience. The sweets are still available, but they're placed in the fridge now, so I have to stand up to serve myself. The mechanism our boss applied is called nudging. It forces me to reflect the unhealthy behavior more consciously, while the automated behavior is used in favor of the healthy choice. Behavioral psychology assists me in making a smarter decision. Talking about sustainability, I find such tools very exciting because they work without prohibitions, no penalties, and the alternative choice is still available. So I'm here tonight to show you how easy people can be empowered to behave more sustainable. We all know about the situation of our planet, the increasing global warming, climate change, scarcity of resources or water, air pollution. For decades, scientists have been urging that it requires profound changes in our economic system and the way we live and consume. 11 tons is the average carbon footprint of a German consumer. 3 tons is the maximum the Earth can handle per person. It's our way of living, heating, our mobility, our diet, and overall consumption. The good news is this means every single one of us has the chance to make a difference. But if it's so easy, why is nothing really happening? Even worse, our carbon emissions are still increasing, such as the spaces we occupy for living, the sizes of our cars, the distances we travel. How can one rationally explain that most of us really care about saving the planet, but our behavior goes into the opposite direction? It's because our behavior is not based solely on rational processes. It is guided by 2 different systems. A rational system, making conscious decisions after careful considerations, and an automated system which works on a highly unconscious level. While the rational system makes you reflect very well if you want to grab some of the potato chips in front of you, at the latest after the 3rd time the autopilot is activated and you can only interrupt this behavior by huge efforts. But beside this autopilot function, there are other mechanisms that support unconscious, unsustainable behavior, such as personal relevance. In my daily life, I don't feel I'm directly affected by the global challenges. For me, it seems as if they take place elsewhere in the world. The decline of the Arctic ice, clearance of rainforest in South America, air pollution in China or India. I personally don't feel a direct threat forcing me to change my behavior. Furthermore, our lives are so fast-paced and stressful. There are so many responsibilities that we have to manage every day. Of course, I find it disgusting how animals are kept for meat production and the conditions of child workers in Africa, but I just don't have enough time to think about it. Also, social acceptance plays an important role. I don't want to be an eco-freak. We're social beings programmed to fit ourselves into society, so most of us unconsciously follow certain mainstream patterns. And after all, changing habits is so much more difficult than staying on old paths. You see, there are so many reasons and excuses why people don't behave sustainably. So we need mechanisms to support them. Prohibitions and penalties can be applied, such as our emission badges banning vehicles from city centers if they don't meet emission standards, or a carbon tax penalizing unsustainable behavior with extra costs. These mechanisms work with negative consequences, but there are numerous other tools that could guide people's behavior through positive empowerment. You remember the nudging mechanism I introduced in the beginning? We can assist people by developing new ways of sustainable consumption by reducing barriers, such as making the organic product the cheaper product in the supermarket. Actually, they are the cheaper product if we would consider all the costs of external capital, subsidies, and the environmental cost of industrial products. Another interesting example comes from Copenhagen and Amsterdam. These cities demonstrated that people's mobility behavior can be changed by installing more bike lanes or making public transport more convenient. Reducing social barriers can also be very effective. People are more willing to adopt a new behavior if it's popular. So what would you think if celebrities and influencers suddenly practice green consumption or minimalism rather than opulent jet-set lifestyles? Steering mechanisms can be even more effective by making the sustainable option the standard option. Make a guess. How much water can be saved by a hotel by setting the low flow option rather than the multi-flow option as default in their showers? Up to 30%, plus the energy to heat it. Another way of positively influencing people is to reward, such as providing tax reliefs for carbon-neutral lifestyles. The Chinese government is currently experimenting with a social scoring system. I'm sure you read about that in your newspaper. Thinking about sustainability, I find such an instrument very interesting. It would allow us to reward people's honorary commitment in caring for the elderly or children in need, or people's voluntary activities in greening their neighborhoods. Many of these activities, unfortunately, do not receive the appropriate appreciation in our society today. But beside appreciation, we can reward people's activities with benefits in other areas of their lives. Services and opportunities in education, medical care, financial services, which were so far exclusively tied to people's financial background. What do you feel thinking about the Chinese scoring system? Take your time to feel this emotion. Is there a strong negative energy and inner rejection? Fear, anger, or threat? Maybe this emotion is connected to a newspaper article you just read recently, which triggered strong emotions in you. But why don't you feel such a threat thinking about climate change? Honestly, I'm even more worried about the other mechanisms because they are highly intransparent and solely operate on an unconscious level. We even do not know we are manipulated. We believe we're free in making decisions. We neither know the parameters that define correct behavior nor the authority behind these decisions. There is a strong risk that these tools are misused for other interests. Actually, for decades, smart marketing people have made use of these tools to convert us into profitable consumers. So, instead of reducing consumption to save the planet, we buy larger cars, make more air travels, throw away instead of repairing. These are legal economic disciplines called behavioral economics, multisensory marketing, or neuromarketing. We really need transparency in the use of such tools. But even more important, human dignity and common welfare must range at higher priority than economic interests. But beside these risks, these tools do not even eliminate the main problem of unsustainable behavior, which is unconsciousness. So why rather give up responsibility and wait until some politicians install mechanisms? I don't want to give up responsibility, and I don't want to wait. We have to act right now. We therefore need to cure the true causes of our destructive behavior. Every human being seeks for happiness, but we tend to believe that it comes from somewhere outside of ourselves. A successful career, a fancy new car, a fulfilling partnership. We visit awesome places and reward ourselves with pretty things that we can buy everywhere. This type of happiness is so inefficient. I call it the fireworks happiness because it unfolds in a spectacular explosion but immediately disappears. Even worse, the more often we do it, the shorter these peaks last. Like a drug addict, we consciously strive for more. True happiness is so easy to find by recognizing the little things in life, such as the birds singing in the tree while you're waiting for a friend. It's not enough. Most of us live in a permanent, subliminal state of lack, an old primal instinct, a survival mode which is self-centered and fear-driven, generating even more destructive feelings such as greed, envy, arrogance, and leads to the unnecessary accumulation of things we actually don't need. It's not enough forces us to become better and faster because we're not successful enough, not pretty enough, not slim enough, not masculine enough. This idea leads to a constant exploitation of resources, even our own ones. What would it feel like if you will have enough? I invite you to take a deep breath and fully dive into the present moment. You will immediately realize right here, right now, I have enough. We live in a society of abundance. It's not enough, it's only a fiction of our minds. Maybe I just reached you with my words and for a brief moment you were absolutely convinced that you have enough. Immediately the voice in your head starts bubbling again. Okay, right now I have enough, but what about tomorrow? What about next year? What about my retirement? Your thoughts create a fictional future of which you don't know if it will ever come true. If I look in the audience tonight, the average age is around 35. Be honest to yourselves. How often did you waste your time lying awake, chewing fearful thoughts about the future? But I tell you what, you are here. You still exist. Don't waste your time with fictions. Live in the present moment. The fourth pathology of our civilization is the illusion of separation. On our planet, everything is interconnected, a highly complex system where every action has its consequences. So, when you decide to frequently travel by airplane, you pollute the air that you breathe, the soil that nourishes you, and the water that you drink. This even works on an interpersonal level. Whether you discharge your negative energy onto your taxi driver, who might probably pass it on to the next passenger, or you provide people with moments of appreciation and joy, everything returns back to you. So, as consumers, we make ourselves complicit to the conditions how animals are kept, people are exploited, the rainforest is burned, because every single purchase we make is a silent approval. If we really desire to transform our society. We have the historic opportunity to evolve humanity through an inner revolution. It's cowardly to wait for changes in politics and economy. What do you expect from people who are all affected by the same pathology? Right here, right now, you have the ability to refuse your infantile desires and outgrow unconsciousness, to develop new paths of sustainable consumption and healthy relationships. As powerful creators, you have the ability to shape the future you long for, a future of appreciation, joy, respect, and equality, in harmony amongst people and with our beautiful nature.